We have now seen which CSS classes Vue adds by default, but also how to change the class names by specifying a transition name. But that only changed the prefix of the class names. So what if we wanted something entirely different? Perhaps we wanted to integrate a third-party library that provides a number of transitions and animations. We can easily do that by adding attributes to the transition component. So let's see an example of that. First, however, I want to show you the library that I want to integrate into our small Vue application. So I'll open up the browser and go to Google, and the library is named animate.css, so we can find that by typing that into Google, and it's the first result, so let's click that one. Here you can see the animations that are included in the library and see a preview of them. Let's now go to the GitHub repository and see how to use it. So click this link down here, View on GitHub. And scrolling down, we see installation instructions, where we can choose between Bower, NPM, or using a CDN. Of course, you can also just download the CSS file if you prefer. The important thing is that you include a link to the CSS file within the index.html file. I have personally used npm to install the library as a dependency and then included the CSS file from the node modules directory. Once that's set up, we can see that to animate an element, we should give it the animated class in addition to a class for the effect that we want to use. I'll use the pulse and zoom out animations for the enter and leave phases respectively. Going back to the code, how do we apply these classes to the paragraph instead of the default classes? Like I mentioned earlier, we can do this with attributes. To define a new class instead of the vEnter class, we can use the enter class attribute on the transition component. And for the vEnter active class, we can use the enter active class attribute. Let's begin to type out the attributes and hopefully you will see a pattern. So enter dash class and enter active class, enter to class, and then for the leaving phrase, leave class, leave active class, and last but not least, leave to class. And of course, these correspond to the classes that we've seen earlier. And within the values for these attributes, you'll of course just enter the names of the classes that you want to use. And again, you could use the vbind directive if you need to. So the classes that we are interested in changing are the vEnterActive and vLeaveActive classes. Therefore, I can go ahead and remove the rest. So I'll remove this, and also these two for the leaving phase. And these are the ones we're interested in. Since we need to add the animated class either way, I can enter that for both of the phases. So animated here as well as here. All that's left to do is to enter the name of the animation for the two phases. So for the entering phase, I want to use the pulse animation. And for the leaving phase, I want to use the zoom out effect. Since I found that I needed to specify a width for the paragraph to make the transition look as intended, I'll just give it a width of 200 pixels. So let's find the paragraph, set the style to 200 pixels for the width property. And that should be all we needed to do to add some nice looking transitions to the paragraph. So let's test it out. Let's click the button. And awesome, that looks good. But the first transition is a little fast, isn't it? Okay, probably it isn't, but I want to show you how to make it slower anyways. Right now, the duration of the animation is specified within the animate.css library, but by applying an additional class, I can specify a different duration. So what I'll do is to add a new class to the entering phase, and I'll name it slow. And then I'll go and add some styles for the slow class. And the property that I will add in here is animation-duration. And I'll set it to 3 seconds. And that should make the first transition slower than before. So let's see. That's how you can change the names of the CSS classes if you need something else than the default classes. Keep in mind that elements will still have the default classes that have not been overridden, so you can use a combination of default and custom classes if you want. So that was pretty easy, right? Maybe it was even too easy, so let's try to implement an animation without using the animate.css library.